Hi, my name is Tom Rankin. I'm a small businessman from the Squamish area, and I live near the Ashlew River, which comes into the Squamish River right at the foot of the Tantalus mountain range, just north of Squamish. And I am here today to talk to you about a situation in British Columbia which requires your immediate attention.
Hi, my name is John Calvert, and I do energy policy work. The reason I'm speaking to you today is to talk a little bit about what's happening to our rivers and streams around BC. The government has been encouraging private energy developers to acquire water licenses all across the province for the purpose of generating hydroelectric power. It's been doing this on a first-come, first-served basis. That is to say, whoever learned early on that these water licenses were essentially up for grabs has gone in and grabbed them for absolutely minimal payments. A water license for power costs either $5,000 for a relatively small project or $10,000 for a larger project. Yet these projects, some of which will generate $10 or $15 million a year, are being given away essentially for what I would describe as a pittance, almost nothing at all. The public's ability to acquire revenues from these from its water resource is also fundamentally compromised by the system that the government has allowed to be in place with respect to the water rental charge.
So I'd encourage everyone to go and watch or get a hold of the movie, the Enron movie, A Few Smart Men. In British Columbia, we're experiencing the takeover of our rivers, our hydro-capable rivers, and our public energy system by a few smart men. There's never been a debate in British Columbia. The political leaders in British Columbia have joined with the corporations to sweep aside the public in a process that is catastrophic to the future generations of British Columbia. The current situation is that in October of 2006, the municipal governments are joining together to fight the provincial government on a bill called Bill 30. Bill 30 sweeps the local governments away from any kind of zoning authority over any private power project in their area of authority. This particular action by the provincial government and the corporations is a loss of democracy in British Columbia that cannot be accepted by the public. The only chance of defending democracy in our province now is for the public to become active in short order and to educate themselves. And in this month's edition of Common Ground magazine, the October issue, there is a section having to do with BC Hydro. You may have heard recently BC Hydro advertisements essentially saying that you should relax, that BC Hydro is doing a good job and they're developing new power. Unfortunately, the truth of the matter is that the system is being broken apart by a few smart men, that all of the rivers are in the hands of individuals under a scheme called water licenses, and that hydro itself is facing a catastrophic collapse probably within a very short period of time. The Union of British Columbia Municipalities meeting is in Victoria the last week of October, and the Premier speaks on the last day at 10 o'clock, and I'd encourage every British Columbian to make their way there and make their voice heard. I'd also encourage every British Columbian to go quickly to their mayor or their regional district chair or whoever their political representative is in the area. That's a local political representative, and take with them the information that's available on hydrofaxbc.ca or in the Common Ground newspaper, or I'm assuming in other publications through the month of October, and encourage them to act on your behalf. And when I say acting on your behalf, I'm talking about the public of British Columbia. The public of British Columbia in 3 regions has been very clear and has gone through long processes and has said certain things which have been pushed aside by the same government and the same corporations who are taking your power assets from you. You may hear that it's too late, that Accenture has your billing systems, and that the deal's been made secret. The deal was made secret. You may hear that the Transmission Corporation is gone and it's too late. It's not too late. The Transmission Corporation was set up by this same government and the corporations to prepare us for the Enronization of our system, and it's not too late. It's a Crown corporation that can be expunged, and the transmission system is still in the hands of Hydro. It's just simply a piece of paper. And with regard to the bottom part of BC Hydro, the most valuable part, the generation, the systems there are in our hands still. And although the government has issued many purchase orders, those purchase orders can be canceled. There's only 11 or so of these projects built, and we can buy them back. So the possibilities exist that we can save our systems. What you will be told by the government, by the corporations, is that it's too late, that we're too far down the line, that the cost is too high to get back. None of those things are true. What is true is that we are a public who should be the dominant institution, not the government or the corporations. And in our case, we have corporations and government acting together to take our most valuable asset.
Let me explain what the water rental charge is. For the use of the water, our public water resource, private sector power developers must pay a rental charge. That rental is based on the amount of energy that is generated by the water. And we measure that in megawatts or megawatt hours. The charge per megawatt hour currently is roughly $1 and change, about $1.086 for the use of our water. Now, to put that in perspective, the government is now paying about $83 a megawatt for energy it's buying from the private sector through its energy call process. There's a huge spread. The public is getting almost nothing for the water resource that we all collectively own. And this, to me, is completely unacceptable in terms of protecting the public interest. Why are we selling our water resource so cheaply for next to nothing? And who are the beneficiaries of it? These are important questions that the public needs to look at and needs to understand.
What's going on is private power producers are all over our assets. We're giving them to them. When these things come to fruition, our prices will certainly be at the American level. So the current rate in the United States, which is the rate that these private power people want us to get to right away quickly, as soon as they break BC Hydro, is 4 times our rate. And during the Enron debacle in California, those rates reached $1,200, which would be some 20 times our rates. And so it seems to me to be a crime of unusual dimension. And the legacy of this premier is not going to be a good legacy. The problem that we've got in Canada is that the issue of a parliamentary democracy doesn't allow us to stop a majority government. I think if we had a recall legislation and we were able to vote perpetually, that things like David Emerson and that horrendous scandal, and the scandal of Gordon Campbell, which is unfolding now in the October issue of Common Ground, would never occur.
The current energy call, in which the government is buying power from private energy sources, was supposed to give us energy initially at around $55 a megawatt hour. To put that in perspective, the cost from BC Hydro's own generation at its major dams is roughly $5 a megawatt hour, or 1/11, less than 1/10 of the cost that it was planning to purchase this energy at. However, when we look at the documents that have just been released with respect to the energy call, what we find is that the government is saying the price is $73 a megawatt hour, which is a huge increase from the 55 that we were initially led to believe. And in fact, when you look more deeply, you find that the actual cost of the energy is considerably higher even than that. It works out to around $82 or $83 per gigawatt hour or megawatt hour that we are acquiring. And compare that with the historic public energy that we have behind our own dams, which is roughly $5 a megawatt. With all this money that we're spending acquiring energy from the private sector, we acquire no assets. And yet these energy purchase agreements and the huge cash flow that's attached to them for these proponents are fueling and funding the construction of these projects and the creation of huge asset values for the private proponents lucky enough to own the water and the water license. It's not a fair deal for the public, and we need to deal with it.
It cannot be overstated, the value of the water assets in British Columbia. As a matter of fact, no economist will give us an estimate of the value, because in a changing world, with the climate changing, with instability in societies and in governments around the world, the value is not. You can't appreciate the value of it. If you put yourself forward in time, there is no way to estimate the value of BC Hydro. The key is not to put contracts on our rivers. Once a contract is put on a river, it's just a matter of time until a larger corporation and a larger corporation and a larger corporation absorbs them, because water power is the oil of the future. It's better than oil. It produces energy. There's no cost for the fuel. You're not burning anything. It's yours, and you're in the process of losing it.
And all this is happening in the context of no public debate about it, no assessment about what the future value of these water resources are for the public, how much is being given away. Now, 10 or 15 or 20 years from now, when people look back and see the value, they'll scratch their heads and wonder, how could so much of our valuable water resource be given away for so little? But that is exactly what is currently happening. We need a public debate about this desperately. We need the public to be aware of what's happening. We need proper assessment of the value of these sites, the value of the water resource, so that the public can make a real determination as to whether or not this is what they want to happen to the valuable water resource that we have in BC.
The Union of British Columbia Municipalities will meet in the last week of October in Victoria, and I would encourage everyone to go to Victoria and make their voices heard around that time. And that would be an opportunity for perhaps all of British Columbia to show up and tell the Premier what we think we need to do with our water power. Inside the Common Ground article of October is a sheet called the Corporate Political Sales Pitch. It was a copy of a letter written by the MLA from West Vancouver, Garibaldi, where more than a third of these run-of-river power projects are. Her name is Joan McIntyre, and Joan is a pollster, good friend of the Premier, a good Liberal MLA, and toes the Liberal line. And the Liberal line is quite clearly laid out here. I won't go through all of it, but I can tell you that there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 points in her letter, all of which are refuted as either this is completely untrue with some backup information, or this is unusually deceitful with some backup information, or this is extremely regressive with some backup information. And so I encourage everyone in the province to read this article, and it's available on hydrofaxbc.ca, and it's also available on the Common Ground site, which I think is commonground.ca. So I would encourage anyone and everyone to read that. The Mayor of Victoria has also issued a letter against Bill 30, and there are a number of mayors and a number of chairs of regional districts who have. I understand recently that our own area people, the Mayor of Whistler and the chairman of the Squamish-Lillooet Regional District, are together co-chairing the effort to have Bill 30 rescinded. So we are asking that the province of British Columbia rescind Bill 30. Bill 30 was introduced at the close of the last legislative session. It gave the Ashley River to Ledcor, but it also swept all municipal governments out of the ability to vote on land issues around power projects, specifically private power projects. Bill 30 effectively exempts electricity generation projects from review by local government. Prior to Bill 30, local governments would conduct public reviews to ensure such projects would not compromise local public values. And so Bill 30 makes private power producers agents of government. It gives them the ability to expropriate property. And there is no recourse whatsoever for the public in that process. The government will respond, or is responding on the Bill 30 issue and saying that there will be public consultation. But that public consultation is completely meaningless. We've had public consultation in this province at Christina Lake, at Kitimat, and at the Ashlew, and we've decided we don't want those rivers put into power projects. We've had our public consultation. Any assurances by the minister now that we're going to have public consultation is fruitless, and it's very deceptive. Very unfortunate that we here in British Columbia are subjected to a government like the one that we have. Very unfortunate for the people. The only possibility that we have in this society to stop the loss of our water power assets is to ask the local level of government who are meeting in Victoria in late October to represent us as people and save our water-powered energy source for ourselves. The fact of the matter is that BC Hydro is being kept public, but it's being narrowly kept public. And what we would like to do is very simple. Cancel the Accenture agreement, give us back our billing systems. Cancel the incorporation of BC Transmission Corporation, completely unnecessary, Crown Corporation. Leave it where it belongs inside BC Hydro. And cancel the 600 water licenses, refund the money involved in that, very small amount of money involved in that, and keep those assets as public and develop them ourselves for our own future needs. Maintain that income for ourselves and for our children and for future generations. And where there are existing run-of-river power projects in now, a dozen or so, then buy them out. Yes, they paid $10,000 for the license, and yes, we financed their assets, and yes, they'll want many, 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 many millions of dollars for each of those projects, but now's the time to buy them out, because we'll never get a hold of our public assets once we license them. I would recommend that anyone seeing this broadcast go to nowpolling.ca and start the process in earnest of changing this society and finding a way to create accountability that counts, as we are in a position where we will be the laughing stock of the world if we lose our water-powered energy systems to a few smart men in the United States.